Here we are. We have Alon Orbach on the show today. We're going to be talking about real estate agents investing in real estate. It's nothing new, and it's still not being done often enough. And Alon's going to go through some of his strategies on how he is building an empire. And we're going to hear about that. Welcome, Alon.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for
I've
having me.
been watching a lot of the interviews with others that you've been on, other shows you've been on, and you got a lot to share. I really appreciate you coming on.
Anytime.
So there's a few things that really attracted me to have you on the show is you do a lot of investing in real estate, and you're doing it at a high level and high-end properties. And I want to dig into that. Before we get into that piece of it, give us a little history on how you got into real estate.
Yeah. So obviously, a long time ago, I moved here from Israel. I went to school here. I studied economics in FIU in Florida. And I always knew that I want to do real estate. It's kind of like, it was always in my goals. And when I moved here, after I finished my degree, I started working for a a real estate company. I was the property manager. I managed a few buildings. Each building was hundreds of units. So I kind of really jumped into the water. I didn't have experience, but I am a person that really learn, how to do things in depth. And I took the challenge. It managed some properties. And then I moved to California for almost 2 years. I had some businesses there. I had coffee shops, and I always wanted to go back to real estate. I had some.
Back up a second there.
Sorry. Yeah.
You're living in Florida. You're
Yep.
working for a management company running 100+ units, and you have businesses, coffee shops in California.
Well, I moved to it. I had an opportunity with some partners that they live there, and we just forces, and I moved there.
Okay.
And we started it. It was pretty good. And then I always wanted to focus on real estate 100%. I did not want to do property management 100% because it just kind of take all your time, energy, and you cannot really focus on growing. So if you are looking long-term goals, it's impossible to, each person where he wants to be. But for me, it just wasn't where I want to be at. When I came back to Florida, I actually got back to property management, but it wasn't the same. It was doing more like everything. I started doing management plus real estate side to get the properties for the investors, and I manage it for them. And we did a renovation, so finding the tenants for leasing, sales. Then it became kind of like everything.
So the full cycle, the full economic cycle. That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it was in a period where long-term investors, they wanted, for example, 8% return. And it was relatively easy to find it in our area. We always had properties that we could get to them to do long-term 8% cap rates, and they were very.
Why is it? I mean, I've been in markets and it's very difficult to find them, especially in some of the resort areas where there's such a limited inventory. The prices are really high. You're in a very much that kind of scenario, I would think.
Yeah, so that was trying to think how many years ago. Let's say it was probably 12 to 10 years ago, give or take.
Okay.
So back then, the prices were still low for houses here.
Gotcha.
And you could find homes that you could rent long term. For me, it's perfect. I mean, I wish I could keep doing it. But then, like you just said, the prices start going up. And the rents, as much as they went up, they didn't go as much, and we couldn't find any more 8%. And so all those investors, they were like not buying anymore.
Gotcha.
So right before kind of like it reached the peak, I wanted to see kind of like what's the next thing that we can do. And then that's how I kind of start looking into the vacation rental. I had with my partner in the brokerage, Shachar Goldboim. So he actually started a management company for vacation rental.
Okay.
And he knew that I have, a lot of expertise in real estate, in general. So we kind of joined forces in the brokerage side. I'm not a part of the management itself, but basically we start bringing a lot of investors to want to buy vacation rental homes. And then there is also a full cycle. We had like the management company, we had interior design, we have the brokerage, we had construction team, like everything was ready to go. And the returns when we started were amazing. It was like 17% return, cap rates.
Yearly or full or from
Annual, annual. Yeah.
wow.
Not IRR, not nothing, just straightforward cap rate. It was 17%. It was sometimes 14%, but it was amazing numbers.
Yeah.
And then the company just started growing and growing. And then we got into managing hotels, buildings.
Slow down. Hold on. So here you are. You say you have a brokerage. Do you
Yes.
have, what's that look like? What's your brokerage like?
So the brokerage life is like, it used to be 100% focusing only on vacation rental investments, which is basically every day. We're right now all over Florida, like from Miami all the way to Tampa. We have different properties. So
How many agents are in your firm?
we don't really work with agents. Like we're three in the brokerage, three people, and I was actually the one driving all over. And we have a lot of relationship with locals, like local realtors and stuff like that. For example, we're looking to expand into Texas, so we have relationship with local realtors that we will work with, but we don't really look into bringing them into our brokerage. That's not really the goal.
Yeah.
So it's literally waking up in the morning, look at all the new properties that comes to the market, and we already have a very good screening tool, so we know very fast if a property will work for us or not. We'll get into that as well, because that changed also drastically, to know what is good or not. And then driving. If I need to drive all the way to Tampa to see a good property, I'll drive.
So your goal in this brokerage is to acquire properties.
Well, yes, but again, it's a cycle, because we're, for a few years we're acquiring, but then we're also selling. So we're also selling a lot of properties that used to be a vacation rental property.
Now, when you're traveling, looking at these, are you representing other entities, or is it your own firm?
So that also changed. When we started, we had investors. They were looking for properties. We found them the property. I already knew when I go to a property who I have in mind that will take it. After a while, as we grew, we started doing syndication. So basically, we're partners in every house with a certain percentage.
Great.
And we also work with family offices, funds. We're not a fund, but we're working with other larger companies that are looking to inquire. And then we basically look for them. So we already know pretty much who's going to end up buying it.
Are your investors from all over this country and the world? Do you have international investors with you?
We do, yes.
Good. Excellent. Fantastic. Okay, I'm thinking I'm lining somebody up that I want you to talk to. That's fantastic. So you mentioned looking for properties in that, and you have a box that has to fit into, the numbers and all that. There's so much that goes into an Airbnb. I hate that term. They turned that into a verb. Short-term rentals. There's so much that goes into short-term rentals that a lot of people don't think about. And it comes down to they get the location, and there's just so much more than that. And I know you're into this. You have to pack everything into that house, from the sofa down to the can opener.
Right.
So that's a lot of work. How do you figure all that into it?
Yes. So when we started, most of the properties were relatively close to the beach, not like walking distance, but 5 to 10 minute drive. It was usually 3 bedrooms that we managed to make them 4 bedrooms. Always have a pool. That's like a must in every house, to have a pool. And those houses worked really good. Back then, those prices for each house were the market kept going up, and we became very saturated. So we started in an area, and a lot of people came after us. And all of a sudden, you have like 30, 40 houses that are doing the same thing.
Right.
The competition became really big, and we had to find an alternative. And we also start buying a little bit more expensive houses, more towards the 1 million, 1.5 million. And
then you get into amenities. I used to run some short-term rentals on Cape Cod, and the amenity was air conditioning. That back then, right? It's come a long way. And cable
It did.
sometimes.
It did. So when we started, there was only a pool, and then we started doing like a game room. Adding a pool table, ping pong. If we have a garage, we did like a movie theater, stuff like that. Very nice. But again, because it became saturated and the prices start going up, then is basically where we are today, where we're focusing is on full amenitized houses that we're buying acre lot properties, 4 to 5,000 square foot, minimum 6, 7 bedrooms. Sometimes we have 9.
Wow.
And those houses, we have much more amenities. It can be a full basketball court, soccer field on synthetic grass, miniature golf.
For these places, what's your target?
So the thing is, when you're buying acre lots, you're already going to the suburbs. You're not in like the highest density areas. So the prices is a bit lower. And because of that, you can also rent them for a bit lower price versus what it will cost you for the same house to be close to the beach. If you want to rent a house like that close to the beach, you need to rent it at like $4,500 a night.
Right.
That to make money. And we rent them an average of roughly 12 to 1400 a night throughout the year, which is still a very high number, but that's what people are paying. So when you're asking who is coming, it's a mix. It can be families, it can be people who look for just like retreats, it can be people who have like a bachelor party, it's a mix, but a lot of them are families. It's families that they want a really nice house that they can stay in the house with their kids and they have everything they need inside, and they don't mind to drive to the beach, because at the end of it, when you go on vacation, the time, the actual amount of times you go to the beach can be like once or twice, not more than that. You drive, unless you actually go for like a beach vacation.
And there are no sharks in the pool.
No.
Right.
No, and then with the experience, we really saw with time what material to use, how to do it, because right now, for example, the hottest thing is pickleballs. So now we're building pickleballs in every house. Back then, it was a volleyball court. It keeps changing. So you definitely need to stay on top of it to make sure that you're giving really what the higher demand is now. And that's something super important that I can tell you we didn't look into it as much as now. When you're buying a property that can be perfect for vacation rental, it doesn't mean that it's perfect for families to live in like the forever home. The reason why I'm saying it, you can buy a house at a good price with comparables to the other houses in the area, but when you want to sell it, all of a sudden it's a very hard sale, because furniture for a house like that, just to give rough numbers, it's $80,000. To add all the amenities, it's another like $150,000, depends on what you're doing. So you're adding about $250,000 just for extra stuff. And when you're selling it, you need to justify an increase in the price.
Right.
Most people will not give you, nobody will give you $80,000 for a furnished home,
Right.
for the furniture, especially when they've been used. It does help with the sale, but not really, and we cannot. So in order to increase it, even bedrooms, for example, for vacation rental, the more bedrooms you have, the better rental it is, the better income. But when you're selling, like almost nobody needs 9 bedrooms. And it does hurt your flow. The flow is not, for 9 bedrooms, you're not going to have an amazing open concept flow. So now we're thinking about it much, much more when we're buying a house, and we're thinking how to add the bedrooms and how to do the flow. So that's definitely something we're thinking about, the resale, value. We did think about the resale value before, but not in a way of like, okay, people don't really need it, so let's orchestrate it differently.
What is your hold? How long do you typically hold on to a property? 5 years?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so far the numbers are very good. Obviously the market went up, so the resale value was very good.
Now you're talking numbers and investments that are blowing some people's minds. They just don't have the pockets for it. But there's money out there. So how if an agent's out there, they're seeing these opportunities, how can they put something like this together?
You're saying when people are just starting, you mean? Okay. So first of all, a lot of people, when they start, they don't go to a $2 million house.
No.
It takes some time. It also...
It's all relative though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's relative, but the thing is, you definitely need an experienced management company, because I can tell you that those full amenitized home have so much headache. It's a lot of headache.
Wow.
And if you know how to deal with it, it's fine. But you definitely need. So if someone starts, I will definitely look maybe at a property that maybe will make a little bit less money at the beginning, but a smaller property, more like 4 bedrooms with a pool. So you can probably start at around $700,000, give or take. It also depends. If I start now and I don't have so much money, I will probably manage it myself if that's what I want to do. And management companies 20%. So if you find a house that is like borderline for, if you give it to a management company, if you do it yourself and make 20% more, let's say if you're less experienced, so you will make less money at the end of it, but with the 20%, you're still going to make 10% more, for example, if it makes sense.
So identifying the market, and it's obviously it's got to be a place where you have a good chunk of the year where there are people going to be wanting to rent the place. Florida gets a little hot in the summer. What's going on then? Are you still occupied?
So we are around the year 68, 70% occupied throughout the year. The number
is that the target number?
Yes.
Okay, good. Great.
Well, back in the days, it was 75%. The market did change, which is also super important to know. So I can tell you that I have a lot of houses that I'm selling at a higher price, houses that we did Airbnb and that now we're selling it for profit. And I get so many people thinking to buy them for Airbnb, and they're not going to work with the new numbers, right? The number where I'm selling it, it's not going to work at all. You maybe going to break even. And it shows me that a lot of people that look for properties, they use realtors who are not that knowledgeable about the market. And I will never show this house, you know what I mean, for someone who wants to do an investment. So the Airbnb definitely changed. I don't know how it's going to be this year. I do think this year will be better than 2024.
You run into any issues where they've changed the zoning or the rules?
So yes, we get to a lot of areas where they change the rules, but not the zoning. So where we're going, first of all, we don't buy houses with an association. That's a really red light. And I can tell you even that we got into a few contracts where the seller said that there is no association, and we found out that there is an association from like 20 years ago and it's volunteering. But if it's volunteering, they still have bylaws, and you can change those bylaws. So there is a lot of headache and knowledge that needs to go into that for those areas that are, can I buy with an association that is volunteeringly or not?
In case the rules change, are you strategically positioning the properties in different areas, or do you concentrate on for economies of scale?
So for example, Hollywood, when you started a few years ago, you will just get the license for vacation rental and you can do as you wish. With time, as it became a business, the city hired a third party to inspect the houses for licensing. They actually come to your house, and you can have Airbnb for 4 years license. They can come to you today and tell you, where's the permit for the kitchen from 10 years ago? Where's the permit? And you're like, I don't have it. I bought it like that 10 years ago. They're like, well, you need to take a permit right now and fix it. So the cities, it depends where, of course, they do sometimes try to give you a lot of hard time, and you need to deal with it because people do complain. That's why also in acre lots, you have much less neighbors, you have much more space. So a lot less people complain, which is very important for us. But the acre lots, so plantation, for example, right now they have a minimum amount of bedrooms that you can rent. So even if you have 9 bedrooms, you cannot advertise it for 9 bedrooms.
Right.
Now that's something that you could not know when you bought the house. You couldn't know that the city will change it. The numbers still work good. They probably would have worked better, but we did decide because of that to not buy as much in plantation, for example. You do want to, if you can buy a house in an unincorporated area, that's the best in a way, but it's very hard to find because then you don't have the licensing situation and nobody's going to.
Florida's a no-brainer for this type of product and this type of service. What's going on in Texas that's drawing you there?
So what you just said is good and bad in my mind, because a lot of people think, oh, Florida is so great. So you have tremendous amount of people wanting to do it here, and the competition is very high. You have now new construction buildings that are building for Airbnb. That's something that you never had before. A few years ago, you never had. It was very hard to find a unit where you can do Airbnb. Now they're building for it.
Right.
So they're trying to bring a lot of people, but those buildings, the return will be very low. People think like, oh, I'll buy new construction for Airbnb. It's going to be amazing. Probably going to get you like 5%. It's
Wow.
not great.
Right.
So we were thinking about going to Texas, because Texas also have a lot of, for example, Austin, you have, a lot of people moving in there. You have a lot of tech companies. There is a lot of high traffic there. It's an amazing, city. And then there is Dallas, which is also right now they're building, what do you call it? The Universal Studios in
Really?
Dallas. So you definitely have a lot of potential. However, what we found out is that it's very similar to Florida. Yes, Airbnb works. Yes, you have also great properties, great opportunities, but it takes a very long time to find. So you can be on the market for like a few months until you can find a property. Now, if you're doing it for yourself and you just want one house, it's fine to wait. But if we're a company and we need to disperse, for example, let's say $5 million in a few months, in 2 months, 3 months, so we cannot just buy one house and wait. And then, because we also have to have the infrastructure there. We need to have the management company. We need to know who's going to do the construction, renovation, furniture. So we cannot just do it for one property. So now it's kind of like on hold. We're waiting to see where the market will go. Austin, it's one of the main capital, like for weddings there. So there you could buy a very nice property to do also weddings and have extra income. Here in Florida, it's very hard to do because they're not going to give you license for that.
Right.
So that's a huge difference, because in Austin, the unincorporated, you can do whatever you want. Nobody talks to you.
That's a nice thing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that's a huge plus. I mean, you can make extremely well with weddings.
So how many properties are you acquiring a year?
It really depends on the year. Definitely in the last few months, we really slowed down because, and I'll talk to you also about it in a second, what's the future goals are. But we definitely slowed down because right now we feel that the market is kind of like in a point that we don't think it's going to keep going up. We think it's either going to stabilize or go down. And we do want to see what's going on with the Airbnb income, if it's going to go up again to where it was like 2 years ago. So we need to stabilize right now. We basically were inquiring 2 to 3 houses a month.
Okay. That's ambitious. That's a good pace.
Yeah, but we haven't done it in the last like probably 3-4 months.
Right.
So we still have projects that we, from the houses we bought. There was a storm in Florida not long ago, so we still have a bunch of houses that we need to do a fix for them. A lot of stuff going on.
And you have somebody running the management side, not you?
Yeah.
Good.
I did management for a long time, and I'm not I don't want to go back to it.
Yeah, I get that.
A lot of headache.
Fully get that. So you mentioned your partner as he's got something going on with short-term rentals.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So that's a Boom. That's the name of the company.
BOOM?
BOOM. If you Google it, it's probably Boom Now, like BOOM now.
Okay.
So when we started, the brokerage, the management, it's called Design VR. Design VR was one body basically that we had the software and the management, everything in-house. And then we decided to split it to 2 different sectors where we still have the management, but the software, it's going to be a separate basically company. And that company in the last 2-3 years is growing in a very rapid pace all over the world. Basically an AI-based management company only for vacation rental, and it just won #1 prize of Tech Company of the Year in a very there is like a short-term rental, like what do you call it? It's called IMN. It's a company that organizes all the tech companies in this sector. So that's basically where they won. And the company is basically so operators all over the world are using the software to do their management. Usually if you have like over 30 properties, it's worth using this software. Less than that,
Right.
it's probably not worth it. Now, and that's what I wanted to get to, how it's impacting us from the brokerage side. So right now, let's say we have operators in, for example, Portugal, Spain, Israel, Africa, and also in the United States, different states. There are more countries, but let's say you take those countries. I know right now in a click of a button where is the best investment from all those places. I know in Portugal how much percentage the operators are making. I know in Spain how much they're making. So our goal is that in any given time, we can disperse the funds to different areas where right now it's the hottest area. So, for example, there is a slowdown in Florida. We can go to, like I said, Europe, or we can go to a different state in the United States. And that's to us, again, for myself, it's the best tool because not many people have that, ability to see all those numbers.
That's you're not driving overnight to get to those places. It's a lot further than Tampa.
Yeah, but I can tell you that I just purchased a hotel in Zanzibar right now. So,
Zanzibar?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, on the ocean, 45 rooms, and it's the numbers. Again, we were doing now heavy construction there, but basically the numbers in Zanzibar, for example, is 20 to 27% return. So that's why I'm saying we have a lot of tools right now to see a lot of options.
So how are you uncovering these? People bringing them to you, these
So,
opportunities?
so, so the software is growing, like I said, in a crazy pace, and you have more thousands and thousands more like units that are being used with this management tool, and so we have all those numbers. Again, it's a separate company, so they have their own marketing campaigns and everything.
Well, how do you find how'd you find that hotel in Zanzibar from Florida?
So specifically there, because I built a lot of different relationship with different, people that are very serious, let's call it that way. So I know someone who built a 5-star hotel in Zanzibar 7 years ago. It's number one in TripAdvisor at the moment. And I became partner with them.
That's fantastic.
Like that's, for example, there, but I visited there. I flew there. I mean, obviously I'm not just buying it blindfoldly. When I do get to a different market, I do a very, very research, and I check all the, rules, regulations. I go there myself. I want to see really the occupancy rates, to talk to different people. That's also something, a lot of people, it's kind of like split to two in investment. People want to invest only something that's close to where they live, or people are open to, invest when they hear a friend saying like, hey, it's a great area. So for me, I'm not scared of, I had times that I bought something that wasn't close to me and I got burned.
Yeah.
But I learned from that because the deal itself that I bought was a very good deal on paper. It just, the partner I had with that deal, screwed me over.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot of money there. But, it's very important to know who you're doing business with and to do the research, and not to be scared necessarily of, getting out of your comfort zone and to do some stuff.
Talk about that. There's got to be some fear in this business, or are you numb to it at this point?
Yes, to both. There is always fear. I mean, look, every time that someone needs to take money from his own pocket, there is always fear in it. You can have fear when you buy stocks. You can have fear when you buy a Bitcoin. You can have fear when you buy a house to live in for yourself. And there is always fear. So I don't let the fear guide me. I let the fear give me like, okay, should I look further into it? So I don't like to jump to, something just like that. But I learned never say never, never say no. I'm always open to hear some stuff. So if someone is telling me, hey, I have a great opportunity, I'm like, okay, let me hear about it. If it really makes sense and I know really like where am I protected with it, really the research is the number one. And if you do it, then in a way you don't eliminate the fear, but the fear doesn't guide you to not go for it.
Well, yeah, you're solidifying the potential of the property.
Yeah.
There's the difference between wanting to do a deal and investing in an opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll tell you now, for me, what really got me to the next level, let's say, was to surround yourself with really the top people that you could think of. We have people that are amazing in the board, and we just everyone around us and the people that we know right now, the networking, it's really like next level. It's really people who've done hundreds of millions in deals, whether it's lending or whether it's acquisition, or it's just really like amazing people with a lot of experience. And I'm not afraid, to also say no to stuff. But Zanzibar, for example, it took me like, probably since I wanted to do it, probably took me like 2.5 years to actually get. It's a lot of, checking to do. And, it's still exciting. And in a way, I'm saying like, I'm not thinking about like worst case, but the market in Zanzibar, for example, is very hot right now. You have like Four Seasons, you have Hilton, you have Bill Gates as a resort there. You have a lot of European companies that buy a lot of land there, development. They open another airport terminal.
Great.
So when you're doing all this research and you see really what's going on there and you go there and you feel it, at the end you have to have an inside feeling and you have to trust your gut feeling as well.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like, okay, I try it. If I fail, I still have a roof above my head. So fine.
You mentioned that at this level. What's the next level?
So, for example, now we have a lot of people that are looking, to contact us in the brokerage, for example, to sell their buildings, which is stuff that we didn't have before. And we're not advertising. It's just like word to mouth people that in our network. So I think next level is going to be to get more into developments, the hotels industry. And I think the next level, like right now for specifically what we discussed will be to outside the United States to use those operators and to start acquisition in different countries.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Going global.
What's that?
Going global.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not that it's my dream. It's just that I feel like it's very hard to focus only in Florida for what we're doing. I mean, I have a partner, is one of my partners in Zanzibar actually, and he buys buildings. So for his product, he still buys buildings every, 5 months, let's say. He finds them, but it's a different structure. It's not, for what we're doing, I feel like we have to get outside. I wish I could do it here.
And is the same model apply with some tweaks as far as what you're looking for? The numbers, are they the same no matter where you go?
So, for example, Zanzibar, let's take that. Zanzibar, for example, I would never go into if we're not on paper at least making minimum 20%, because it's still a third world country. It's a stable country. It's a safe country, but it's still a third world country and things can happen. So, you do want to protect yourself, obviously, as much as possible.
Yeah.
We're looking at Guatemala, for example. So Guatemala, distance wise from Florida, it's compared to Zanzibar, it's a very short flight. So over there, it's also third world country in a way, but it's been safe for a long time. And the returns there also, I would never get into Guatemala if I'm making 10%. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But if I'm making 20 and you really see the future in the country or the place, then I think it's worth it. If I'll go to, for example, so let's say you go to Europe, a known country like Portugal, Spain, I don't know, it doesn't really matter which country. So if you're going there, then you need to think about the coin, right? If they're using a euro or they're using a different coin, but what is that coin versus the dollar? How much it changes, the inflation? Like there are definitely a lot of more variables getting into it, but at the end of it, the numbers needs to work. And I think in Europe, if we're going to get like 10% more, 10% cap or more, then it will work. Florida is still a hot destination. So a lot of people say, oh, I want Florida, I want United States, I don't want to invest in Europe. It's just because they have a concept, they have a dream in mind, of what they want to do. But I think that, that's kind of like the tweaking that we will need to do. And also, and of course, the regulations. We need to learn the contracts. We need to, there is a lot of homework that needs to be involved.
And you're trusting your service providers, those who are helping you out with the construction and all that. They're so far away.
Right.
You got to have some real strong faith, and not just faith, but some real concrete evidence that they're going to perform for you, I'm sure.
So that's why we only using operators that we know personally. It's not just knowing, you actually see their numbers, because all the numbers go to our system. We see all the P&L.
Beautiful.
So that's kind of like the only tool that, it's the best tool. Like,
Yeah.
it's better than people telling you stories like, oh, come, it's good numbers, it's gonna make this eight.
That's fantastic. That's a great insight.
Yeah.
Look, that's great.
And I think it's gonna take us probably 7 months to a year to really start with that phase.
Yeah. That's super exciting, Alon. Really cool what you're doing. I talked to a lot of people, and what you're doing is so different.
Yeah, I think that it's just, always have an open mind and not making yourself only like narrowing to one area. And you also don't want to just be all over the map. So I'm not saying to try everything. Focus on one thing, but always guide yourself to, where you make the best profit.
And this isn't an overnight deal for you. You've been working at this for a long time.
Yes, and it's a long time, and it's also, you are adjusting. I mean, where I thought I'm gonna be, 15 years ago, it's definitely not where I'm at now. I'm happy where I'm at now, but it's not where I didn't picture it like this. I didn't look into it. Another thing is not to be afraid of getting out of the salary zone.
Yeah.
When people offer you, because if you're good at something, they tell you, oh, come work for me, I pay well. It's very limiting, to how much you can go up the ladder. Again, it depends. And some people are happy with that, and it's fine. But those people want to be entrepreneurs. It's a different set of mind.
When was the last time you were an employee?
I think 8 years ago.
8 years?
Yeah, something like that.
So you really
and back then, like 8 years ago or so, it was also a mix for me. I was partner in some deals, and I also had like a base salary.
Nice.
But the base salary really was the one that got me, like, it really stopped me from really going to the next level.
Instead of funding you, it was more of an anchor.
Yeah, but it also depends on where you are in life, because obviously if people, I will be, so you're talking about fear, right? To me, to stop getting a salary, and then you're like, okay, if you're not making money, you need to pay your rent. So you definitely need to be smart about it as well, because I already had experience when I start, stopping with the salary. I had experience, and at the same time, I had some money saved that, if I'm not going to make money for 3-4 months, I still have money to live.
Right.
And I was also, I was married, and, my wife was like, okay with that,
Right.
which is super important, because, you do need to have a supporting surrounding. And that's what I think is also very important, because the fear guide us, in a way.
Yeah. Fantastic. Alon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all you do.
Yeah, Joe, I really appreciate it. It was very interesting conversation, a lot of different aspects, and it was great.
You're doing some stuff that I know a lot of agents, a lot of people are going to aspire to. And I think what they heard is start smart, and always be smart, start slow, and just keep at it, and never say never.
Never say never.
Right. All right. If you're watching the show, please subscribe. We're going to have more great guests on, like Gabe. Be your best. Have fun.